Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.
Hello and welcome today. We'll be taking an in-depth look at the US presidential elections process. This topic isn't only important for Americans, but holds significant global importance, impacting international relations, trade, and global policies. The US president plays a role that affects international diplomacy, economy, and even security alliances, shaping the world order in profound ways. Now, let's dive deep into a little bit of introduction on the role of the US president. If you look at it this way, the US president is both the head of the state as well as the head of the government, giving this dual role a blend of ceremonial duties and real political power. Unlike parliamentary systems, where the head of government can be removed through a vote of no confidence, the US president serves a secure 4-year term, which brings a stability to the office. Only in extreme measures like either impeachment can remove a president, and this process is rare and very challenging to carry out, though it has happened in the past. This stability allows the president to implement policies and shape the direction of the country without constant political shifts. It also ensures continuity in US foreign policy, which has an obvious global impact. Now, where did this all start? All this started with the understanding of the US Constitution's influence. The US Constitution was one of the world's first written constitutions and has served as a model for many democracies, including India. The structure of the US government reflects the balance of powers between branches of the government, between the federal and the individual states. This emphasis on separation of powers, along with the checks and balance systems, and it has influenced other nations in their own constitutional design. The US Constitution lays the foundation for a federal system where the president holds real executive authority, unlike the ceremonial role of the President of India. This unique structure gives the US president significant power domestically as well as internationally. Now, carrying on, I would like to pass on to Mr. Gaurav, who take you through the process of the US elections, as well as very important things like the Electoral College, as well as the key swing states. On to you, Gaurav.
Thank you, Nakul. Good morning, everyone. See, in the election process, the US presidential election process is quite complex and differs significantly from systems with direct elections. In the US, citizens participate in an indirect election process. Voters select a group of electors known as the Electoral College, which then votes to decide the president. This Electoral College mechanism is fundamental to the US system, representing an indirect but structured means of electing the head of state. The president's term is 4 years, with maximum of 2 terms allowed. Initially, there was no limit on re-election. This changed after Franklin D. Roosevelt's unprecedented 4 terms, leading to the 22nd Amendment in 1951, which limited presidents to 2 terms. However, if a vice president assumes the presidency due to a vacancy and serves 2 years or more, this term counts as one of their 2 permissible terms. The US Constitution, ratified in 1788, has been amended only 27 times. That is a striking contrast to India's Constitution, which has undergone over 100 amendments. This difference reflects the stability of the US federal system and the stringent amendment process. Now, I will quickly take you through the stages in the US presidential election process. It follows a multi-stage process that spans over a year, beginning with candidates declaring their intent to run and ending with the official election day. So, declaration of candidacy. Potential candidates announce their intentions typically 18 months before the election. This declaration phase often sees 25 to 50 individuals expressing their interest, primarily from the 2 main political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. Primaries and caucuses. Candidates participate in primaries and caucuses, which are state-level events held to narrow down the list of candidates in each party. Primaries are usually state-organized elections, while caucuses involve gatherings where party members discuss and vote on candidates. By the end of this phase, each party selects a single candidate. National conventions. In the summer before the election, both the Democratic and the Republican parties hold national conventions. At these conventions, delegates formally nominate the party's candidate for president. The nominee then gives an acceptance speech, signaling the start of the general election campaign. From September to early November, candidates campaign intensively across the country, focusing particularly on swing states that could favor either party. Presidential debates play a crucial role during this period, allowing candidates to present their views and contrast themselves with their opponents. The US presidential election is held every 4 years on the first Tuesday following the first Monday in November. Voters cast their ballots for electors who make up the Electoral College. While it may seem that Americans are directly voting for the president, they are actually selecting electors who in turn vote for the president. In December, the Electoral College meets to cast official votes for the president and vice president. The candidate who receives a majority of electoral votes, at least 270 out of 538, is declared the winner. The president-elect is inaugurated on January 20th, officially beginning their term. Now I'll quickly take you through the concept of Electoral College, one of the most unique aspects of the US election system. Unlike India's direct voting system for positions like members of parliament, the US uses an indirect system to elect the president. This system is designed to balance the influence of both populous and smaller states. The Electoral College consists of 538 electors, a number derived from the 435 seats in the House of Representatives, 100 seats in the Senate, and 3 electors from the District of Columbia. Each state receives a certain number of electors based on its representation in Congress. For example, California, the most populous state, has 55 electoral votes, while smaller states like Wyoming have just 3. Now, why the US Electoral College has 538 electors? Let's break this down. This number is directly related to the composition of the US, as the Electoral College is designed to reflect the representation of each state in Congress. Congress has 2 chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate. Let's look at each one of these to understand how this adds up to 538 electors. The House of Representatives, which has 435 members, is based on population, with seats distributed among the states according to their population size. Larger states like California have more representatives, while smaller states like Wyoming have fewer. In total, there are 435 seats in the House, and each seat corresponds to 1 electoral vote. The Senate, on the other hand, having 100 members, is designed to provide equal representation for each state, regardless of its population. Each state has 2 senators, making a total of 100 senators across all 50 states. Each Senate seat also corresponds to 1 electoral vote. The District of Columbia, using the 23rd Amendment to the Constitution, which was passed in 1961, grants 3 electors to the District of Columbia. This amendment ensures that residents of the capital have a say in presidential election, even though they don't have full congressional representation like the other states. So when you add it all up, 435 members from the House of Representatives, 100 members from the Senate, and 3 from the District of Columbia gives us a total of 538 electors in the Electoral College. To win the presidency, a candidate must receive a majority of these votes, at least 270 out of 538. The purpose of this system is to balance the representation of states with large and small populations, giving each state a voice in selecting the president while reflecting the country's population distribution. Now, before moving on to swing states, I will just quickly give you how this Electoral College works. When Americans vote in the presidential election, they are technically voting for a slate of electors matched to their preferred candidate. In most states, the winner of the popular vote takes all of the state's electoral votes. This is known as the winner takes all approach. Maine and Nebraska are the only exceptions, as they allocate their electoral votes proportionately based on who wins each congressional district. The Electoral College was established by the founding fathers as a compromise between electing the president by a direct popular vote and a vote in Congress. It reflects the federal structure of the US, whereas states retain significant autonomy and power. This way, smaller states retain some influence, and candidates must appeal to a broad geographic range, not just densely populated urban areas. To win the presidency, a candidate needs an absolute majority. If no candidate achieves this majority, the decision goes to the House of Representatives, where each state delegation casts one vote for one of the top three candidates. Because the Electoral College isn't a direct reflection of the national popular vote, it can sometimes result in a candidate winning the presidency despite losing the popular vote. This happened most recently in the 2000 and the 2016 elections. This aspect of the system remains a topic of ongoing debate, while some arguing for reforms or even abolition of the Electoral College, or some in favor of a direct popular vote. In summary, the Electoral College is a defining feature of the US presidential election system. It requires candidates to campaign nationwide and can amplify the importance of certain states. This system ensures that less populated areas still have a voice, although it has its critic who argue it can misrepresent the overall popular will. Moving on, I will quickly explain you about the swing states, the essential concept in US presidential elections. Swing states, sometimes called battleground or purple states. Unlike states that consistently vote for one party, like California for the Democrats or Texas for the Republicans, swing states can swing between parties in any given election. This unpredictability makes them highly influential in determining the overall outcome. Swing states are those where both major parties have a relatively equal level of support. Some examples of well-known swing states include Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan. These states have a very high history of switching party loyalty from one election to the next, making them difficult to predict. As a result, both candidates tend to focus intensely on these areas. In the Electoral College system, the winner-takes-all rule in most states means that winning a swing state gives the candidate all of its electoral votes. Because the margin in these states are often very close, even a small shift in voter preference can determine which candidate receives the state's electoral votes. For example, in 2000, Florida was decided by just a few hundred votes, ultimately swinging the entire election in favor of George W. Bush. Candidates spend so much of their time and energy and resources in swing states. It includes tailored messages that appeal to the specific concerns of voters in those states. Campaigns organized numerous rallies, advertising, and door-to-door efforts to sway undecided voters. For instance, issues like manufacturing jobs might resonate more in swing states with a large industrial base, while healthcare could be a hot topic in others. Additionally, presidential debates and media coverage often highlight these issues relevant to swing state voters, as winning these states can mean the difference between victory and defeat. It's also worth noting that the list of swing states isn't fixed. As demographics, economic conditions, and political views shift, the importance of certain states can rise or fall. For instance, states like Arizona and Georgia, traditionally Republican strongholds, have started leaning more toward Democrats in recent years, adding new dynamics to electoral strategies. Ultimately, because swing states are often the deciding factor, they receive outsized attention in the election process. In fact, many elections are won or lost in just a handful of the states. In summary, while each vote across the country matters, swing states play a unique role in shaping the campaign and determining the election. They embody the competitive spirit of US politics, where every voter in these states becomes critical to the final result. Moving on, I will also quickly run you the difference between the Senate and House of Representatives. House of Representatives is designed to reflect the population of the country. Seats in the House are allocated based on each state's population size, meaning states with larger populations have more representatives. For example, California, the most populous state, has 53 to 55 representatives, while states with smaller populations like Wyoming have just one representative. Members of the House serve 2-year terms, which means they are up for re-election every 2 years. This structure makes the House more responsive to changes in public opinion. The House represents the population directly. It is often seen as the chamber that reflects the current political mood of the country. The Senate, on the other hand, is designed to provide equal representation for each state, regardless of its population. Every state has exactly 2 senators, making small states like Vermont having representation as large states like Texas. This setup balances the influence of populous states and smaller states, ensuring that each state has equal voice in the Senate. Senate serves 6-year terms, with elections staggered so that only about 1/3 of the Senate seats are up for election every 2 years. So the key differences between these two, the House is based on population, while the Senate has equal representation on each state. House members serve 2 years terms, making them more directly accountable to voters, while senators serve 6-year terms, offering greater stability. The House often initiates revenue bills and represents immediate public sentiment, whereas the Senate provides a more stable, balanced platform for considering legislation, including reviewing presidential appointments and treaties. Now, moving on, I'll ask Nakul to talk a little bit about the role of campaigns and debates.
Thank you for the detailed explanation of the difference between Senates, the House of Representatives, and how the swing states can decide it. Now, let me take you through some of the presidential debates, because for a swing state to be won, a debate is something that the people often look forward to. Unlike India, debates are a cornerstone of US election campaigns, offering candidates a platform to articulate their policies, respond to opponents, and reach to voters directly. Each election cycle typically includes 3 debates for presidential candidates, one for the VP candidate and one for the presidential candidates. Debates are closely watched by the public, who use them to assess candidates' strengths, policy understanding, and overall demeanor. Following each debate, media outlets conduct polls and analysis to gauge the public's reaction, often influencing voters' opinion and solidifying or shifting support. Now, once the debates are done, the next is the election day and the voting process. Let me quickly take you through how the election day and the voting process works in a brief tone. First is the timing. In the United States, election day is set by the law as the first Tuesday following the first Monday in November. This means it always falls between November 2nd and November 8th. This date was established in the 19th century to accommodate the country's largely agricultural population at that time, allowing voters to travel to polling places without interfering with the harvest or religious practices. Now, when Americans cast their ballots on election day, they aren't directly voting for the president. Instead, they are voting for a group of electors who make up the Electoral College. Each state has a predetermined number of electoral votes based on its representation in Congress. And most states follow a winner-takes-all approach, as we've seen before, where the candidate who wins the most votes in state receives all its electoral votes. Let me give you guys an example. A populous state like California has 55 electoral votes, while a smaller state like Vermont has only 3. The candidate who wins the popular vote in each state generally secures all of that state's electoral votes, giving them a crucial step towards the magical 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. One more key thing about casting and counting votes is that mail-in ballots have become a very popular thing in the US. Even before the election day, around 50 to 70 million people cast their votes through the mail-in ballot system. On election day, millions of Americans head to polling stations to cast their votes, while many others participate through early voting or mail-in ballots, as we've seen before. Once the polls close, states begin counting the ballots. Thanks to modern technology, most states can report results relatively quickly. However, some states with a large number of mail-in ballots or strict rules on when counting can begin may take longer time to report the final results. Now, let me ask you a couple of questions, Gaurav. You detailed us on the swing states and how the House of Representatives and House of Senates work. I want to ask you particularly on the importance of swing states, especially on the election night.
So basically, election night often becomes a nail-biting event as results come in from across the country, with particular focus on swing states. These states often decide the outcome due to their mixed political affiliations, and their electoral votes are highly sought after by both parties. As the results come in, each state's declared winner provides an indicator of how close each candidate is to reaching the magic number of 270 electoral votes.
So staying on the same topic.
States on election night is very high. Yeah.
So staying on the same topic, how are the electoral college votes are finalized? Because this is also a topic of important contention, correct?
So while the projected winner may be announced on election night based on state results, the election isn't technically official until the electoral college meets in December. In this meeting, the electors from each state cast their official votes for president and vice president. These votes are then sent to Congress, where they are counted in a joint session in early January, confirming the election results.
Got it. So now we know how the electoral college votes and the swing states can highly impact an election. There's always a margin for error. So this margin for error is in the form of delays and disputes. Especially in close election, disputes or recounts can delay the outcome. A notable example is the 2000 election between George W. Bush and Al Gore, which hinged on a recount in Florida. After weeks of legal battles, the US Supreme Court ultimately ruled on the recount and Bush was declared the winner. Although rare, these situations highlight the complexity of the US election process and the importance that every vote does. Now, to kind of summarize all of this into 3 or 4 lines. In summary, election day is when Americans exercise their right to vote, although they technically vote for electors rather than directly for the president. This unique process, along with the role of what we've seen as the Electoral College and the swing states, creates an indirect pathway to electing the US president, blending popular will with federal structure that values the input of each state. Now, one more important thing that we need to look at is, Gaurav, can you please take us through the inauguration and the global impact that such an event provides?
Sure. See, the newly elected president is inaugurated on January 20th following the election. The ceremony includes taking the oath of office, symbolizing the peaceful transfer of power. The president's inaugural address typically outlines the administration's priorities and sets the tone for the next 4 years. The US president's role extends beyond domestic governance, impacting international relations and global policies. So the global significance of the US presidential role is very high. As a superpower, the United States influences global economics, trade, and diplomacy, and the president's policies can affect countries worldwide, including India. US elections are watched globally due to their potential impact on international alliances, trade policies, and global security. In particular, India and other countries closely monitor US foreign policy shifts and economic strategies, as this can shape bilateral relations and economic opportunities. Therefore, the US presidential election is not only an American event, but a global one with far-reaching implications for many nations.
So now that we've kind of seen how the US election process works, this is a very long and detailed process, hence why the US elections are conducted every 4 years. Now, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this content and would like to support us, please leave a like and do subscribe. If there is any other topic that you would want us to cover in the same format where it's more of a detailed kind of way, please do let us know in the comments below. Thank you.
Thank you.